Okay, so a lot of you are asking me about how good Larzy is, or Lazui. I'm not sure how her name is pronounced, but I really just wanted the dragon, and when I was pulling, I got her first, so I decided that I would try and review her. Her kit is interesting. Um, Takes a little bit to ramp up, but once you get her skill 1 and 2 charged, you can kind of spam them fairly quickly, especially with the new dragon, which is the reason I was pulling for the new dragon. The new dragon is amazing. Unfortunately, I still need one more Sunlight Stone to fully unbind it, so that's going to be a bit of a limitation in this review. My weapon also isn't fully unbound. It's just the tier 2 axe for Mercury Zero Unbound. For her equipment, worm print wise, I'm not running those event prints. I was making a team earlier. I'm running both of the new prints, Frostbite Punisher and Buff Time. The Buff Time I have on her, it's limited in the challenge battle because you don't really get it off too much, but I'm going to try her out in High Brunhilde later on. Her skill 2 actually does have a fairly sizable buff to both strength and crit rate. My thoughts are putting her on a team with 3 Pipples and have her be the baiter at the open of the fight. With that, the strength and crit rate will help the Pipples a lot and probably get it into overdrive and then to break incredibly quickly. With that, I think I would probably replace both of these worm prints actually. Proper maintenance, I would replace with Chocolatiers and his clever brother. I would replace with Odd Sparrows, that way the Pipples can heal me. But that'll be another video later on. Right now, we're going to test her out in the Full Bloom Festivities Master. She does not have stun res, so she is off resistance for this fight, but challenge battles aren't the most challenging. It's more a test of like how quickly we're able to get her skills off, how her animations are, if her iframes can really protect her from things. So it's kind of just a test of her utility. Given that it is a wave battle and I'm going to be taking chip damage, I brought along a Helper Halloween Lowen just to mitigate that. I might not have to use it, but it's just in a pinch because those stupid goblins and their chip damage can actually be a hindrance. Anyway, let's see how she does. An issue with the dragon not being fully unbound is that a lot of enemies here that would be a one-hit KO, if I had the full strength aura, also being hindered by not having full strength from the weapon being unbound. There's a lot of close combat that this axe is going to do that isn't going to result in the one-hit KO that we actually need. But again, the Halloween Lowen Helper kind of helps with that. We're going to mitigate some of this damage right now, and it's an extra iframe at times when necessary. With the wolves, it's easy to keep enough distance most of the time, especially because you can knock them back pretty easy. Overall, she did okay. Her iframes aren't the longest, so she does get a little overwhelmed with the Cyclops. I could have done better positioning. Challenge battles aren't necessarily the thing that any of us are really the most experienced with, because they're not as developed as I would like them to be. I would like more wave content, and axes like her are good for wave content. As for force striking, I didn't force strike that much because without having a max aura or a maxed weapon, I'm not going to take anything out with the Force Strike, and the wind-up just leaves me vulnerable to take chip damage. If you have everything fully invested in, her Force Strikes will be a really great way to knock back and clear out large batches of enemies, especially the slimes in the beginning. You saw I took a couple of chip hits. I suppose you could also run Skill Haste Wormprints on her, and that might help. But with the dragon, if you have the new dragon, or if you have Halloween Murderous, it's a case of diminishing returns. You're not going to see that much off of it. And because her buff is attached to her skill 2, you would rather have buff time on it. And also because she inflicts Frostbite, that Frostbite Punisher is really, really valuable. It is important to note also that the new Wormprint, his clever brother, even though it's a 4-star, has a really high amount of Frostbite Punisher, 20%, which is pretty good since it maxes at 25, and also 5% skill haste, which doesn't seem like a lot, but in cases like challenge battles when you're going to need an iframe in a pinch, if that 5% will sometimes save you just one swing of the axe, that can prevent you from getting stunned, that can prevent you from getting slept, whatever the case is in the content that you're doing. So it's useful. I think that she'll have a place in Agito depending on what afflictions that fight is and what exactly the fight entails. Though, given what I've seen from Brunhilde, I think that the new Agito is likely going to be dominated by Pipples. It's just very hard to kill them if you run Oddsparrows in a team of all 4 Pipples, because you're going to have so much strength buff from it. Because looking at Oddsparrows, there's no cool-off time between the buffs. Right? So you're going to have 8% strength buff times 4 at almost all times during the fight. So you're going to have plus 32% strength in addition to 4 stacks of regen for 20 seconds at a time. You can take massive amount of chip damage as long as it doesn't have one-hit KO attacks, which none of the Agitos really do. It's a lot of chip damage that can stack quickly, but with 4 stacks of regen, that's not an issue. So while the new 5-star is really good and the dragon is amazing, I think the dragon is going to be best in slot for Gala Elisane. I'm actually going to swap out Murderous now, even though I still need to unbind the dragon. My bet is if you're looking for someone to invest in for the Fire Agito, Pipple is your best option. If you don't have Pipple, or Pipple isn't your thing, and you like axes, I think that the new 5-star might be best in slot over Gala Ellie, just because she does have a unique buff and more damage and Frostbite. Especially because you could potentially build a team around Frostbite with Mitsuba, who is amazing. Valerio is also good, not quite as amazing as Mitsuba, but also very solid, and it gives you variety as far as your team goes. And his buffs are more variable than hers, which is useful. That defense buff, like I said, that's what makes Pipple so amazing, so being able to use that on him opens up doors for double buff shenanigans, healerless runs if you have enough defense buffs and Oddsparrows. You know, there's combinations out there, so really, as far as water goes, it's about playing around with it. I love Xainfried, but I don't think he's a solid investment for the Agito. Even with his spiral, his damage is very low. Unless you need to dragon tank a ton in that fight, he's not optimal. If it is a ton of dragon tanking, it might end up being an all Xainfried fight. He has the ability to generate dragon like that and get stronger with each dragon. So that could potentially save him. Hunter Cerise, limited. I'm not gonna ever really push a limited unit. I hate Zodiark because the meta is so limited focused. So I always encourage people to try and build strategies around non-limited units. That way people can always get in as soon as they get that unit, and there's always a possibility to get them. 4 stars are always great for that. You can go directly into water for that. Yeah, like Elisane, always a solid option. She's a good buffer. The new dragon is not going to be optimal on her. Lances have really good skill gains, so Halloween Murderous is still going to be better on OG Elisane. The new dragon is better on the axes that gain SP slowly, so having the skill charge automatically like that is much better than amping up skill haste. If it's going to be mixed resistance, Dragon Eel Cleo people overlook all the time, but she has a ton of utility, being that she can give buffs to strength, to crit rate, to energy, and has great skill shift, and it can inflict freeze. She's very, very solid. If the enemy is susceptible to freeze, that could be debilitating at certain moments and really make or break the fight. Another axe who gets overlooked in favor of like the burn res ones is Summer Julieta, who has a very solid buff zone. In addition to a solid damaging skill, we need to see susceptibility to bog because we don't want to bog too early, which is why her and Summer Celiera and even Summer Rancel struggle. Giving attention to Summer Rancel, he hasn't been optimal yet, but that healing, even though it's not amazing, if it's a low damage fight, like something like, look at like Mercury, if it's a low damage fight that you don't really need a healer, he could essentially take the role that Wedding Elisane takes in High Mercury and work as a offensive healer to mitigate chip damage and get people up to activate conditionals over time. So there's lots of options. Don't think you need a pull for Larzy or Larzy. However, she is a solid unit, as you can see. So, options, tons of options. Even though water isn't the strongest, there's a lot of utility in the element. And given the direction that we've seen between Cerise giving her 4 strikes giving debuffs, Pipple just being a monster of utility in every way, and the buff shifting that both Mitsuba and Valerio have, there's tons of options, and water is going to be a buffing meta. We could have seen that all the way back from Elisane at launch, where she was the original buffer. Water is all about buffs and utility, so invest in utility characters. Tons of weapon types, whatever you prefer. Straight DPS characters like Lily always get power crept. Fjorm is getting her 70 MC, we need to see what that entails, but right now the reason she got power crept is because she was straight DPS, and her mods got worse over time because comparatively we got bosses with more HP, more defense, and she couldn't keep up. So we'll have to see. Things like resistance matter. Look at someone like Dragon Eel Nefaria, not the greatest DPS, but she has a very unique ability in Flurry Freezer, which, if it ever gets a buff to increase the freezing chance, and the boss is susceptible to freeze, she could potentially cheese that fight. We really don't know, so invest in someone you like who has utility, and you'll be golden. So that's my recommendation and review for Larzy so far. More Larzy content to come out, because I'm going to continue to mess around with her in different modes so you can see how she functions. For now, bye.